the CEO and founder of Kupid, and I'm here with the lovely Kara Bell. How you doing, Kara?
Hi, happy Friday, everyone.
Happy Friday. And Kara, we have a special guest today that we're going to bring in just a minute. Happy Friday, Bella Claire. Thanks for tuning
Hey,
in.
Bella.
Hey, Sam. Oh, everyone's tuning in
Hi,
today. Hey, y'all.
Samantha.
So we have a special guest with us today because we're going to be talking about a really interesting topic. And today's topic is navigating niche relationships. And this is everything from, you're talking about a niche, and we'll get into what we mean by a niche in a moment, but whether it's finding singles in that niche, understanding, people who might become also your clients in that niche. So, trying to make ourselves a more holistic and round matchmaker, we need to understand what these things are, learn the vocabulary, learn the process, and then kind of talk about some strategies you can use on those. But Kara, I would love to first start off our conversation today with our person that has joined us. So I'm going to go ahead and bring her in the call.
Okay.
Cassidy, welcome to
Hey,
Kupid.
Cassidy.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey there. So Cassidy, where are you calling in from?
We're in Nebraska right now.
Nebraska. And matchmaking capital of the world, right? Like tons of singles.
We're in a college town right now, so maybe we'll hit up the,
Some bars.
Yeah.
College bars. Play a little cornhole.
Yeah.
Yeah. Social.
That's
all right. So Kara, do you want to go ahead and start us off? I think you wanted to talk to Cassie a little bit
Absolutely.
about her.
So thank you for joining us this afternoon. I know you've been tuning in, and I've really been chomping at the bit to ask you some questions.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, I know that you are excited about becoming a matchmaker. So if you would just share with us all, what has you so enthusiastic about becoming a matchmaker?
Okay, so it might be a little corny, but when I was a kid, I was like 6 or 7 years old. I saw a movie with this lady who was a matchmaker. And I was like, wow, like look at all these people like she can make happy. And it's like it was like a Disney movie or something. Okay. But it definitely like probably over glorified it a little bit. But I was like, I want to do that. So then I was, a couple months ago, I was on Facebook. I was on TikTok. That's what sent me over to Facebook. I was on TikTok and they were like, oh, we'll go to this Facebook page if you want to find, remote jobs. Mm-hmm. And then this Facebook page sent me to a website, which had the listing for Kupid. And I mean, I scrolled for hours trying to find something and I saw Kupid. I was like, that's it. Like, that's, so, and I just kind of was dead set on that. Didn't look at anything else afterwards.
So you said, that's it. This is my chance to become an official matchmaker. And that's in your dream since you've been early on.
Yep.
That's awesome. That is really awesome.
Okay, so I'm hopping back in. So Cassidy, I also happen to know a little bit about you. So you said that you and your partner travel full time. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. So are you intending, so how else do you work? Do you do other stuff, or like do you do other remote based jobs, or like what's your situation? So are you targeting like full-time matchmaking? Is that your plan?
Yeah, I'd like to do as much as I can. I don't do anything else except for take care of the kid and the dog.
Hey, that's a full-time job in itself.
Yeah.
Do not downgrade that.
Don't diminish that. That is a job. Full-time job. Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the benefits she's going to have, Ken, being a matchmaker, is that she travels, right? So you have the ability to really get out there and sell yourself in different cities. That's a great way for you to be able to build up your clientele, to have them just around the United States. So take advantage of that. You don't seem like the shy type.
I used to be, but I'm getting better now. So
yeah, you seem like you'd be comfortable with getting out there and making conversations. So, once you are comfortable, the world is yours because, like I said, you have an advantage. You're out there in different states and different cities. And so you can reach the masses a little more quickly than myself or other matchmakers.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Cassie, you're going to join us today for our conversation around navigating niche relationships. Yep. So, I'm going to go ahead and lead with the first one if you're ready, Kara.
Sure.
All right. So our first topic is polyamory.
Polyamory. I really kind of want to explain where the topic came from today. Once again, this is the honest Kara you're getting. I could not sleep last night, and I started to watch this series. I believe it was on conflicts about
Mhm.
polyamory relationships. Now, I know I always talk as a matchmaker about, finding a niche and kind of educating yourself on the niches. So it was an opportunity for me at 1 o'clock to figure out what exactly is polyamory. I had my own idea. I've heard of other people's ideologies, but it was just wow. It is a world in its own. What I found is that polyamory is basically being okay with dating, being in a relationship with someone and bringing another partner into that relationship. And that relationship can be a husband and wife. And let's say the wife seeks out a girlfriend, or it could be two sets of husbands and wife. And maybe the guy has a girlfriend and maybe the wife has a boyfriend.
Mhm.
So I really was just like, wow, this is really real. There
Yep.
are polyamorous communities.
Yes.
What I learned is that they have their own kind of guidelines and, if you will, about what's
Mhm.
acceptable
Mhm.
in their practices. What I found to be really refreshing was how honest they were when the couple sat down to say, okay, these are what our boundaries are. This is what I'm okay with you doing. This is what I'm not okay with you doing. This
Hmm.
is what I feel breaks our, as they called it, their triad. And it was
Yeah.
a husband and wife that were married, and the wife took on a girlfriend. And then the girlfriend eventually wanted to marry the husband and wife as well to make it official triad.
Union. Yeah. Makes sense.
I was just like, oh my goodness. So they were really kind of just kind of they hadn't come out to their parents or to their family. So they felt like they
Oh.
were
That's
being
hard.
really secretive about their lifestyle. And I'm thinking like, okay, well, what happens on Thanksgiving? Or don't your parents just drop by to like say hi? So, the other challenge was how they were going to be comfortable with coming out to the world about their lifestyle.
Right.
But they were so adamant and passionate about it. And the one thing I really liked was just, it's not for everyone, let me say,
Sure.
but just the love that they had for one another. And I don't mean that in a sexual sense, but just the love and the acceptance that they had overall for people, I found to really be beautiful. Once
Mm.
again, not necessarily my cup of tea, but I could see how people may want to enter into a polyamorous
Relationship.
relationship, because
Yeah.
it's not all about sex. It's really more so about that emotional connection that you get from people. Any thoughts on that, guys?
Cassie, what do you think?
Yeah, so obviously a polyamory relationship is different than your typical two people, but then each poly relationship is also different in its own sense.
Right.
So if we did get like a couple client who wanted a third, then we would have to really like get into like how they operate to find somebody who would agree with that, and not because not every person that's looking to be a third is going to want to be their third. So
Right.
it's very complicated,
That is
I would think.
exactly right. But I thought, would I be comfortable as a matchmaker, like adopting
Yeah.
this as my niche? And I thought it just was like, it's so interesting and intriguing to me how it all works out, because you have
Mm.
monogamous people that can't seem to keep it together. So the
Yeah.
concept of four couples, like all being intimate, all, no jealousy, um,
That would be hard.
not hating each other the next day, I just felt like it might be, if somebody is open to that, might be a good niche for them, right?
Mhm.
To learn a little more about it, because they had such a hard time finding people to bring into their community. So if somebody could adopt that, I feel
Sure.
like
Well, the chances are in today's world, I think you're going to meet people who describe themselves as polyamorous.
Yes.
right? And I want to like, just because I come from the queer community and our community is really well known for being like polyamorous, but I want to make some definitive lines, matchmakers. Like, there's a big difference between being non-monogamous and being polyamorous, because what polyamory means, if you break down the word into Latin, poly means multiple. Amory or amorous means love. You're looking for multiple relationships. You're not trying to go have sex with many people, although that is sometimes legal or not legal in your relationship. Like Cassie said, you make your own rules, right? But let's be very clear, like this is a difference. You're actually looking to date. So it's a great space for Cupid, although super niche, right? And we're not saying that like matchmakers, you do not have to be into this. Like if you say that's not my space, absolutely not.
Right,
if it interests you and you're willing to learn the language, you now have a unique attraction to this very specific community. So I think it's, and like Carrie, you said, oh my gosh, there's so many poly communities. I can't tell you how many like Facebook groups or whatnot. Like I'll go into events and I meet all these people who are married, but they're poly, and so they're looking to date. So it's just super common, believe it or not.
Right. So yeah, if you're comfortable with it, I think the world could be your oyster if that's something that you wanted to make your niche.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cassie, do you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah. So I noticed on like the typical dating apps, I know this isn't a dating app, but on the typical dating apps, you'll see a lot of people who will post pictures of them and their significant other, and they'll say, we're looking for a third. So dating apps and stuff like that are super popular for the poly community to go to find somebody instead of on their own. So I have a feeling they'll probably definitely be flocking over.
Well, it's, it's that safety. Like I'll talk, one of our topics today is about queer people. And like, I think I've mentioned this before, like it's actually dangerous to just like, this is like the beauty and the difficulty of what online dating has done, right? Like as a gay man, I cannot go into a grocery store, find a man attractive and go like hit him up or be forwardly hitting on him. Because like I've been in situations where I've had weapons pulled on me and I've been like punched out for doing that. And so it's actually life-threatening. So, and think about it, like there's some people that would be extremely offended if you were to approach them with a poly relationship. And so, again, this is the beauty of what a matchmaker can do. We're not trying to put ourselves in harm's way. What we're trying to do is smooth those edges and say, are you open to this? And you can do it through screening, you can do it through chat, it can be private. It's so simple to do. And of course, like your poly couples don't want to match with someone who doesn't want to do that. So it should be a really easy connection there.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to help.
Do you think there's a difference in that? And let's say couples that decide that they want to be in an open relationship?
I would say so. Because open, it's just like that non-monogamous thing, right? Open is very different than polyamorous.
Yeah.
And I can say this because like I've been in a relationship before where someone wanted to be polyamorous and I don't want that. Like I don't have the heart for, like, bless them. Carol always saying, bless those people, but like I can't personally do it. So I was in a relationship where my partner wanted to be polyamorous, having multiple boyfriends. I don't think I have that jealousy capacity. Like I don't have that. My goal is a single partner, but I will say I will be totally open to being non-monogamous, open sexually, but not relationship-wise. Because Carol, like I cannot be everything to everyone. It is physically and emotionally impossible. But do I really want to like share my life with someone else? No, but my husband wants some like, go to the gym, physical entertainment, you go mama, like whatever you want, but it's a very different conversation. And it's different for everyone, right? Like it's just, and our job, let's remember matchmakers, our job is to not judge. Our job is to support, solve problems for our clients and help them. And if you're not comfortable with it, don't take the client. Full stop. Pretty easy.
Yeah. That way there's no bias and nobody is uncomfortable.
Exactly.
And no one's Cupid will never force you to take a client. We're never going to say like you have to service this client. It's all at will on both sides. So you have to be interested in what they want to learn and what they want, and vice versa. All right, are we ready to go to the next topic?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
So this is the one that Cassie actually brought up. I wanted to get to the one that is Kara got chills when we talked about it, and then Cassie perked up and said, "Hey, like I experienced this." So Cassie, when we talk about dating with different, like when it comes to politics and dating, we have election season coming up, right? Like November 8th is like the election day. So Cassidy, I think how this all occurred with us inviting you was Kara and I were talking about politics and like the challenge of matching people with maybe not the same politics or like dissimilar politics. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience with that, and we can kind of get to the topic.
Okay, so I've pretty much
I hear the sigh, and it's like,
Like
oh,
he
you
had
know
to
what's
twist her arm.
there's a lot to unpack here. So
well, share what you want. Share what you feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
right. So I've noticed that I've never dated anyone with the same political views as me.
Interesting.
And except for one guy, and that worked out for like a week. So so when I was a kid, I was in like second grade, and for some reason we were talking about politics, and 7-year-olds, that's fine. But I think it was election season, and we were doing like a fake voting at school. Well,
Sure.
the topic came up. One of the kids in class brought it up, and they were like, well, like, how do you marry somebody with different political views than you? Like, that's weird. And they were like making fun of it. Well, our substitute teacher that day was like, me and my wife, he was like, I'm a Republican, she's a liberal. And what we do is we set up every election season like a kind of like an Olympic thing outside, and whoever wins the game, that's who we vote for. And they don't argue about it. That's a done deal. And I was like, that's crazy. But I liked
arm
it.
wrestle. I love it. Let's do
Yeah,
it. Like,
right. Might have an
so
unfair advantage. And that kind of stuck with me forever. I was like, I really can be with somebody, who doesn't share the same beliefs as me. And I'm not really one or the other. I kind of like float around a little bit, but my husband has called me liberal, and I'm like, that doesn't really fit me though, like, cause I'm like a, kind of all over the place. I'm like a squiggly line, but, and he's very Republican, like extremely. And sometimes that does drive me nuts. But as long as I can, you just have to be able to sit down and talk about, like, why do you feel this way? And this is why I feel that way. And come to like an agreement, like, and then sometimes my husband's like, yeah, maybe that's wrong what I said, and after I explain some things to him. I won't get super into it, but I've had to, my brother is trans, so I've had to make him feel more comfortable around the LGBTQIA community because of that, because he was very disrespectful towards my brother. And that's because he was raised extremely Republican. I mean, I was too, but you also have to at some point realize, you need to grow up and think for yourself.
Sure.
And, so I was raised, no gay people, no, nothing like that. And that was like very like hardcore. And then my brother was like, I'm trans. And I'm like, great. Like, one of us had to, you know what I mean, break the ice there. So, yeah, so we just, like they said, like the Olympic thing outside.
That's interesting.
Just, like if there's any disagreements, you don't fight, you just go straight to the, the cornhole. And whoever wins, like that,
Right?
I love the corn. I actually love that. Cassie,
Yeah.
I think that makes you like, but when it comes to matchmaking, I think having someone in your family who is trans is such a fantastic asset. It doesn't need to be your entire brand. Obviously, there's a small quantity of trans people in the world. It's not like there's like bazillions, right? Like, especially with politics today, that make it seem like every other person's trans. They're not, by the way. But,
right.
It's really fabulous that you have that knowledge. And like, I think that's really fabulous. We have a comment from Samantha that says, you have to agree to disagree. You have to have some compromise in relationship. Respect is huge ordeal towards your partner. Thank you, Samantha, for the comment.
Yeah.
I think what this is like I keep saying every time. I remember, okay, guys, I remember, sorry, I'm still on the mic. But I remember one time I was with some friends and they were like really weirded out that I was so like open politically. And they said, well, could you ever date a Republican? I mean, I'm a gay. Most gay people are pretty liberal because like we just got the right to vote like 15 minutes, not vote, marry like 15 minutes ago. So like it's really nice for us, right? And we're really afraid of losing the right to marriage, which is still factually possible, and then that's a bigger conversation of like, what do we do about all these like millions of marriages that happen? Are they just like not real anymore? Whatever. But whenever people say to me, like, could you date a Republican? I say, absolutely. I date any human. Like, I'm not going to allow something like that. But this is for matchmaking. Kara, you were the one that told us it's one of your biggest deal breakers you've experienced, right?
Can I add something?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry. So, I used to be grouped in like I had some Republican beliefs, but then people started boxing us in. Like, if you're Republican, then you are, anti-gay, anti-black, this or that. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, I have, I like this certain thing, but then I also, I want, female rights. I want gay rights. I want racism to stop. That doesn't mean that I'm, you know what I mean? Like, you're not a bad person if you're Republican, if you're respectful and have certain, like, if like you can side with, not every certain Republican beliefs or certain liberal beliefs, and still have thoughts about the other side, and that you like what they're doing on this thing, but you like what they're doing on that thing.
Absolutely.
I'm tired of people boxing Republicans and liberals into a certain category, because it's not that.
Right. I agree. I think what I've really, the conversations I've been having over the past few years, Cassidy, is more that I don't even get asked like Democrat, Republican. I get the if he, and I'm not trying to be like one-sided, but I'm telling you what I hear. And the verbiage is, it's centers around Trump. It's not even a conversation about a Republican or Democrat anymore.
It's just Trump or Biden. Yeah.
Yes. So I don't even hear the Biden. I hear it's because to my clients, I feel like it's a mentality. It's not a political party. They're saying if this person can even wrap their head around the ideologies or the things that come out of this person's mouth, I can't get down with it. That's what they were saying to me. It wasn't like, hey, if this person is a Republican, because I would say, well, okay, let's talk about this. You named somebody specifically. You said Trump. What if they're Republican? Oh, well, that's completely different. So a lot of people think you have Democrats, you have your liberals and independents, you have your Trump supporters, and then you have Republicans. So they have put the former president in its own certain political party. Because with that, people say there's an ideology, there's a mentality that I don't want anything to do with. So I would encourage, as matchmakers, when you do have those conversations about political party, let your client kind of express to them what they mean. What do you mean? Are you okay with Republican and just not okay with this person? Or had people say, hey, gee, I voted for such and such the first time, but I definitely wouldn't the second time after learning what I learned. And so once again, I believe, at the end of the day, when you have two people that are adults and are able to really communicate and verbalize, you can sit down and have a productive conversation with somebody that are at opposing sides politically. But if you don't have two people that can have those honest conversations without flipping tables or without, feeling offended, don't dare put them together. I just respect those wishes, but I will have that deeper conversation. Like, tell me a little more about that, or what do you mean by that? So just make sure that you have a clear expectation, because the political is alive and well now.
Well, I think, Kara, I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense, right? Like, it's our job to not just hear what someone says. So when someone says to me, I don't want to date a liberal, and you say, do you want to talk about that? Or is it just like, if they've ever voted anything blue, just never want to have it ever again? It's our job is to get deeper into it, because imagine, it's just like I tell you, my worst nightmare, right? The swiping, right? You might have swiped on, your dream person because you didn't like one thing you saw, or one little comment. I was actually listening to a matchmaking podcast about this matchmaker, and how she speaks to her clients, and she says for every single thing. So imagine the pool of dating is 100, like 100 people, right? And for every single thing that you say about like your requirements, like the things you will not accept, take off 10%. So it goes from 100, then you got 90, then you have 81. And so very quickly you get to such a small population of reality who's also single and you find attractive, that like your population becomes so minute that you are going to stay lonely, and you are going to like not actually have opportunity because you've closed it off in here. It's not that I can't find you great matches. It's that you're not even open to the concept, right?
I agree. If you can open up your clients, you can cast a wider net for them. And that's really what's going to be important, is having that wider net to cast for your clients.
Yeah.
Right. Right. All right. I'm going to move us on to the next one. So we'll do a less stressful one. How about dietary restrictions? Okay. I want to leave this one off because like I am very political about this. So if you guys don't know, Karen and I went to dinner and we had a really great conversation. I dated a vegan once, and let me tell you what, never again, right? Like as someone who communicates with food, I love to cook, I'm very Southern, like I love food. It was impossible for me to understand. Cassidy and Kara, did you know that honey is not vegan?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I had to learn that the hard way, right? When I was sent out to get like ice cream, or I was sent, here's the funny story. For my not boyfriend, we were just seeing each other, but at the time he said, "Go get me a dessert," and I'm like, "Okay, whatever, I can do that. I like a task, right?" And so I go to get a dessert. I can't get him any ice cream, nothing, right? Like, I can't get him any. There's what dessert does not have like some kind of dairy product? And what was so funny is I finally, right, like fruit. It feels.
Woo.
What did you say, Cassidy?
I said woo.
Right, like I'm like, who would bring a cantaloupe? Like, what a terrible. I don't know. So what I ended up doing,
sugar on it.
I brought him like a frozen dessert that was this like frozen icy thing, right? And it said like whatever flavors, and then of course I didn't read the back when it said like all natural honey, and he was like, "I'm not eating this. How ignorant of you!" And I was just pulling my hair out, right? And so dietary restrictions, like Kara, Cassie. When do we have this conversation? Like, how do we prioritize this? Because if it matters to someone, it matters, right?
I always ask, do you have any food intolerances? That's the polite way of me asking. And then they'll say, "Oh, I'm a vegetarian," and I don't want to be matched with anybody. Cooking meat really grosses me out. But then you'll have people that are vegan or vegetarian that have not always been a vegetarian or vegan, right? It's something that they have adopted into their lifestyles later in life, and they're completely fine with cooking or preparing meat for their partner. They just don't want to eat it. So if you do have people that have food restrictions, ask those questions.
Cassidy, what's your opinion on this? How do we navigate this?
Okay. So my son is actually allergic to mustard, broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, and anything green and vegetable. So
are you sure he's not just telling you that? Like he's not just like, I don't like it.
No, he's 4. He can't even talk yet.
Oh wow.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyways, we had like a whole ordeal for like a year over this. And I'm like, if me and his dad ever split up for whatever reason, I'm not dating anybody who loves mustard. Like I'm done. Like if you eat Brussels sprouts, it's a done deal. So you know what I mean? Because like I don't want that around my kid because he had like so many medical issues for years and we could not figure out what was wrong. So so we don't buy anything but
That's so interesting. So we were just talking about preferences, but now you're talking about like actual allergies.
Yeah.
Like that, and that is like a whole other issue because my best friend growing up, he had a peanut allergy. Okay. And like I didn't know once, but I brought like a Snickers to his house and just the dust. Like I ate it, he didn't eat it. And the dust of the peanut in his room made us go into the hospital. Like allergies are really serious. And it's not just like your preferences, it's also your allergies.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to know so much about your clients, matchmakers. Like this is not an easy job, you know? Like you've got to get deep.
Yeah. That's interesting. I never thought about the food allergies, but most people, I guess my experience has been anybody that I've had as a client that did have food allergies will clearly and quickly communicate that with me. I just want you to know I have some food allergies. One lady sent over a list. It was like 2 paragraphs. I'm serious.
I mean, if you're like Cassidy and your son is allergic to like cabbage and mustard and like of course you have to, right?
Yeah.
What she would or would not eat, would be around in terms of food. And so I said, "Do you want me to send this to every potential mate?" And she's like, "You better shoot yourself in the foot, lady." Like
that's hard.
I wanted to say, okay, I think you need to go on a remote island, but I like.
Yeah.
Then I said, well, we need to talk. because I
Right.
don't know where you think I'm going to find someone that is going to stay
Avoid
away
all
from
that.
all these foods, right? How realistic is
Well,
that?
and then it becomes like patience with the client, right? Because I think the other challenge we have two competing issues here when matchmaking. Number one is we have all the things that you say that you want, and then we have all the things that like you're willing to accept and that you want, and then the other entire side is the reality of like how
Right.
long it will take me expounding effort to find even a possibility for that situation, right? Like we all know the clients who have like the unlimited lists, you know? And
Mhm.
so
That's
understanding
sorry.
what are you saying, Kara?
I didn't mean to cut you off. And I was going to say, and that's when you need to say, hey, you do realize that you have a lot of possible challenges here.
Mm.
It may take me quite a bit longer than it would take my other clients that I match, and I need you to know that.
Yeah.
So if you do have that, once again, that's just kind of I'm sliding that set expectations and let your client know that, hey, this is a long list here.
Right. Don't expect Chris
Yes.
Charming tomorrow. Like we're gonna have to do a lot
Right.
of work, and we'll have to see if we can flex in other spaces to make sure that can work. Cassie has a comment from Bella Claire, the host of the podcast. She said, "Cassie, if you're ever in the traveling near Fort Worth and Dallas, Texas area, you got to let her know." So I'll
Okay.
make sure to connect the two of you, but you should absolutely meet up. If you guys
Yeah.
don't know, Bella Claire has the podcast for Kupid
Podcast.
out on Spotify, which has some
Okay.
really interesting content about different, like most recent episode that I listened to is about like girl boss female entrepreneurs and how like when you should choose to take your passion, your hustle full time.
Mhm.
So Bella's really awesome. All right, I'm gonna move to the next topic that I am gonna lead this one. So as you guys might know, and I'm gonna like do a little bit of education, but also like talk about verbiage here. So I use the phrase queer. I am a gay person, right? And I'm not bisexual. I am like devoutly gay. Only boys, no ladies for me.
I'm trying to get him there. No.
You're gonna have a long battle. You and a lot of ladies have a long battle. So the phrase that we in our community, and I can't, of course, you can't speak for every community, right? Like I don't care if you're Jewish, you can't speak for the entire Jewish community. I can speak for my localized community. We use the word queer because of this alphabet soup. Now, starts the game show. Kara, what's the L stand for?
Lesbian.
All right, Cassie, what's the G?
Gay.
Okay, Kara, what's the B?
Bisexual.
Okay, Cassidy, T?
Trans.
Kara, Q?
Queer.
Got it. Cassidy, I?
I want to say it's inter something. I don't know.
You're right, intersex. Yep, intersex.
Intersexual.
Okay, and the A? Kara?
Asexual.
Jury's out.
Asexual.
Asexual.
Yeah, believe it or
Okay.
not, what's so interesting, or does anyone know the colloquial term, like the common term for asexual? You don't even say asexual.
Ace.
It's a 3-letter word. Cassie's good.
Oh, she knew that. I'd never heard that before.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when you're thinking about like the queer community, there's lots. I mean, now it's much more common, right? Like I grew up in a generation where I saw boys kiss on TV watching Glee. But like Kara, I'm sure that wasn't your like childhood of like watching all these boys kiss. And now today, like it's a very different world. So talk about the queer community. So there are an infinite number of challenges matchmaking the queer community, right? This is not like a normalized like heterosexual relationship. Like there's not usually as many questions about like, are these two going to be into each other sexually? Like because there's especially when it comes to gay men, let me tell you what. You put two bottoms together, like ain't gonna work. Two bottoms don't make it right. You know what I'm saying? And then like two tops, like you gotta find something else. So, and it's the same with women and men. It's the same situation. And then there's even deeper into it. I don't know. Have either of you ever experienced a situation where you'll meet like a client or like a single who says, "I would never date someone who's bisexual." Have you guys ever experienced that?
Yes.
No. Cassidy, tell me about your experience with that. What happened? Was it like someone you knew or like a friend or what was it?
So yeah, I very vague memory of this, but I do remember having a conversation with somebody and they were like, I would never ever date someone who's bisexual because, and obviously they're very insecure because they immediately they were like, well, they could cheat on me with either gender and that's a lot of cheating. And I'm like, what?
And you're like, why don't you think they cheat on you with the, like, are you not worried about their heterosexual cheating? Like, but if they cheat on both genders, no way.
Right.
It's funny. One of my very first boyfriends was bisexual, and it was totally an awakening for me because I am devout. Like I've never, and I'm so glad that it's acceptable these days because I've never had any interest in women whatsoever. And so that I'm so grateful I live in a world where that's safe. Like I don't live in Iran or like somewhere where I can die tomorrow for it, and that's what a privilege, right? But such an interesting thing. So a couple of things I want to talk about when it comes to like queer matchmaking. So if you decide this is going to be a niche you are open to, I want to challenge you, matchmakers. Here, as a queer person, here's what I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear, I have a bunch of gay friends. I'm ready to do this, right? Unless you can explain to me what the L word is, you should not be matchmaking lesbians. You don't know the culture. You don't know the language. Do you understand what a switch is? Do you know a lot of the verbiage that a lesbian client of yours is going to need you to know? Because think about it, right? The last thing you want to do when you find a matchmaker and their profile says like, one of my niches is LGBTQ or queer, or like I know all about this community. You don't want your job as someone you're paying to be educating them. That's terrible, right? That's not the goal. And this is a situation that I've seen when people are like, oh, let me hook you up with someone. And I'd say like, okay, well, I mean, are they a top or a bottom? They're like, I don't know what that means. And I'm like, so you clearly don't know how our community works, right? Like, come on, guys. So this is a lot of like how this space works. And I think, Kira, you've had some experience matchmaking queer people before, right?
I have. I had a gentleman, he was actually from Pakistan, in his late 60s. So, and he had always been out. So I remember us having a conversation just about him being gay in Pakistan, in a country where they would clearly kill him for being gay, and the challenges that he had just navigating his life and having relationships, it being secret, and him having to sneak off and fearing for his life for loving someone. I thought was just so barbaric. But yeah. I didn't know a lot about, actually, he was my first gay client. Embarrassingly enough, I think I gathered the guts as I started to get some queer clients to say, you know what, I really don't know a lot about this. And they were like, oh, are you comfortable learning? And I was like, yeah. So like, put your seatbelt on. And one of my clients
actually the double straps, like put the metal bar over you, like get ready to go up the roller coaster.
Right. He said, okay, if it doesn't offend you and nothing is gonna be, I said, no, I need to know. I want to be able to better understand my clients and their thoughts and some of the lingo. Like I want to be cool and like maybe even use a terminology and know what I'm talking about.
Right.
So he actually was the one that gave me the crash course in top and bottom, and because he was saying all these things. Well, I want him this, that, and he has to be that.
Like,
oh. Some things are kind of self-explanatory. I could figure out top, bottom. Okay, we got that. But when he got into these very specific terms and sexual terms, I had no clue what he was talking about.
Yep.
And I could spend all day Googling, but I said to him, hey, like, I really don't know much about this, but are you open to helping me learn this, to educating me? Hell yeah, girl. He was excited to teach me. So that's kind of how I got like my little terminology and got a better perspective of my gay clients. I would have really deep conversations with them.
Yeah, and Cassidy, I can imagine like having a trans brother. If your brother wanted to hire a matchmaker, I'm sure the last thing he wants to do is like have an in-depth, deep conversation about what it means to be trans, right?
Oh, yeah. No, he well, you know, like I said, how I grew up, it was very like anti everything. Like if you're not guns, beer, and this, like you're not a part of the family, you know?
Right.
So we had many conversations because it went from like, oh, I'm a lesbian, I think, to, oh, I'm pansexual. So throughout his journey, I learned so much about the LGBTQIA because I was the only one that he was able to talk to about anything. Because I was like, well, yeah, like, what do we like? I'm like, I don't know anything. Like, I know what lesbians are and I know what gay guys are, and that's all I know. And I actually one day found a book because the house we moved into, there was this boy there and he was gay. He had a whole a book like that thick on just it said LGBTQ community, everything you need to know, because back then that's what it was called. So, and I went through, I'm like, oh, I want to, like, I read the whole book. And I still, even after that, I was like, what the heck? Like,
there's a lot more, I know.
Yeah. So now, I'm 24 years old, almost 25 this month. So, I'm all over TikTok and the internet, and everyone's using all these terms. And every time I see something I might not know, I have to research everything about that, because, and I'm like, well, I just want to know everything about everything.
Right.
So, yeah.
But
yeah, thankfully I do have. Yeah, but thankfully I do have my brother who's like, oh yeah, no, this, and that, and I'm like, great. It's like, thanks for telling me.
Yeah.
Or if I accidentally say something that might be like insensitive, he'll be like, no, you can't say that. I'm like, okay, sorry. Like, I won't do it again. And we need that.
I agree.
Absolutely.
We as matchmakers need to think to ourselves, like, if we want to cater this community, right? Like, if we want to help this community, like, for example, guys, I am not Muslim. I actually have no faith. But if I want to work with Muslims to matchmake them, I better get educated. There's so much you need to know. And if you have a client that comes to you, I sure hope you are transparent about your education level, right? And it doesn't mean you can't help them. Like, I don't need to be straight to work with a straight client. I don't need, my matchmaker to be of the same faith as me. That is not how this needs to work. But you need to take it upon yourself as a matchmaker to be willing to educate yourself, because the last thing you want to do is mix those wires. And I'm going to say one more thing on the queer aspect. So, as someone who's been queer I've been out since I was 15 years old, a very long time. I'm 32, so I got some years on you, Cassidy. So here's what I want to remind you. And this is a lot of the things that we're discussing. Like, we were going to talk about some faith-based stuff and other things. Some of these, like, situations, some of, like, these aspects of ourselves, especially when dating, we are opening ourselves up to danger, specifically trans people. Many times, I can speak from my own experiences. I actually have a very funny story. There was she's a great friend of mine, fabulous woman. Her name is Nudie. We're really great friends. And in college, she was trying to hit on me, and I told her, hey, I'm so sorry, but would you be my surrogate? And it was so funny because she never came out to me as trans before that. And she said, I'm so sorry, I can't. Like, I am trans. Like, I can't. And it was so, like, mind-blowing for me. What a hilarious situation.
But think about how happy that made them feel, that you really did not recognize them as anything but a woman.
Right.
She lost her mind. She was very pleased. Yeah. Well, Nudie was actually very privileged that she had her surgery really early in her life. So, like, Nudie's been in movies and TV shows, and, like, she's a model. So no one has ever known about anything before Nudie was a woman, and she's fabulous. But that's entirely beside the point. We as matchmakers need to remember safety.
Yep.
Because you're going to have trans clients, as a great example, or you're going to have, like, some clients who say, they might in confidence say to you, I'm open to meeting someone of the same sex. I never want this to be said outside of this room. It's my private life. Not everyone is public with these things, right? Or even more importantly, I am trans. I was assigned at birth a man, and I have transitioned to a woman. I want to be represented on your site as a straight woman. I do not have any interest in associating with being trans. That is your client's choice. That is a possibility and a reality. And it's not your job to, like, flag and say, hey, by the way, they're trans. Like, you respect your client's privacy. Your client's
on their own time.
Absolutely. But also remember safety, right? Like, have that honest conversation, because this is one of the worries that I have, because, like, as the platform, if people don't represent themselves and tell all the truth, we as matchmakers can only deal with what we've been told. So I'm just putting that little, like, caveat out there. Get educated, understand the dangers and risks, and help your client in the way that they want. But just be cognizant of that as a reality. Anything else you guys want to say on that before we go to the next topic?
Yeah, just real quick. So if we do run into that, scenario where we have a client who's trans but doesn't want to openly be trans on the app, they're a straight woman. Now, could we message the single that we're, like, looking into, and be like, hey, like, like, see how they feel about the LGBTQ community? Don't mention the client yet, but just be like, how do you feel about this? That way, you don't say anything about it, but in your head, like, they're okay, they're safe with that person.
I think that's your responsibility, Cassie. And the beauty is, Cassie, when you have 10 clients, no one knows who you're talking about, right?
Right.
And so, like, it's your job to screen no matter what. So I think having that that attention to detail and that wisdom is super smart. Now, remember, there's two ways to communicate with a single on Cupid. Either you screen them just public on their profile, or you can send them a private message. And you can even get on a phone call or video call with them all inside the app. So really, if you have a trans client or you have clients of a certain ethnicity or religion or whatnot that like often receive that clashing scenario, do your extra diligence and just be honest with your client and say like, hey, let's just be real. Like the world is what the world is, and we don't want to put ourselves in dangerous situations.
Yep.
Kara, anything you want to say before I move to the next one?
I think, yeah, if your client has not openly said to you, I'm interested in dating bisexually, then I'd be kind of real careful about those conversations because they're probably not open. You don't want to piss people off either. But
Yeah.
if you feel like maybe you've had conversations and maybe they've kind of alluded to it, but not really come out and said it, then yeah, you could use do your due diligence and have conversations to kind of further establish whether you feel like there might be that possibility. But just do that with
Use your best
caution.
judgment. Use your best judgment, right? And remember, on the Cupid app, we do have a space that does describe your sexuality, and it's multi-select. So we're never going to tell you have to be one thing or the other thing or the other thing. So, we've tried to help you out there, but always your diligence. All right. The next topic I'm going to bring up is kind of a little less like a political one. So, Kara, financial clash. Kara, have you ever had a client who said, if he doesn't make 100K, don't bring him to me?
All day long.
Oh, how interesting.
I've had, this is kind of where I've done my best work kind of with people. Because what I feel like is some people are self-made. Like your prime example, Ken, they have made themselves into a ridiculous net worth, right? Some people don't want to date someone that does not make as much as them. I see that a lot more so with women, not men.
Interesting.
Women.
Tell us more about that, Kara. What was the experience like?
I think that women, they don't want to feel like that they're dating down. I feel like as a woman, sometimes we have to work 10 times harder to get that equal pay or for us to get established in our careers.
Sure.
And I think for women, they want somebody else that is reflective of that, right? They feel like, right, wrong, or indifferently, that a certain economic bracket brings certain things. Not necessarily true. Doesn't mean that somebody's cultured or has class or is respectful. But
or is even decent. Doesn't mean they're a good person. Absolutely not.
But men are completely different. They say, I don't care what she makes.
Interesting.
A lot of successful men will say that. I don't care what she makes. This is what I'm looking for. And then I've also had men that said, hey, if she doesn't make this amount, I'm not interested. But when I've done that further conversation and further work with that client, it's because they've dated women who just dated them for their money.
For the money.
That's why they feel that way, that money is important.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Cassidy, what's your opinion?
Okay, so I've been in both situations. Obviously, so I dated this guy who, he was a roofer, but for some reason he never had money. And I'm like, what is going on? He's like, can you buy me cigarettes? Can you buy me food? Can you drive me here? And I'm like, no, we're done.
Well, just for clarity, y'all, roofers make money. Like Cassidy, I think everyone doesn't know. Like, let's be very clear. Roofers easily, like a halfway decent roofer will clear 6 figures. No problem, no sweat. Hard work, really hard work, but they make a lot of money, Cassidy.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, so now my husband, he works for the railroad and we make 100K a year. And I'm like, but we're still broke, because last year we apparently didn't pay taxes. It's whatever. It's a whole bunch of stuff. So, you know, this year's a struggle. But I ran into a lady at the gas station yesterday. She's seen the railroad stickers and my husband's work shirts. And she's like, do you have any money you can give me? You have, you know, your husband's a railroad worker, obviously. And I was like, what? I was like, you can have him if that's what you're asking. Like, I don't have money for you. Like, all I had in the car was my son's birthday money for his, you know, for him to, and I was like, no. Yeah. So like absolutely insane. And everybody thinks that we have money because he works for the railroad.
Mhm.
But, you know, so like I get it. And I've been on both situations. Obviously my husband's taken care of me for the last 5 years.
Right. But let's be clear, Cassie, like you're also taking care of a house and child and whatnot. And
Yep.
the only way he's able to do that is because of that. So I'm really glad you use the word we. Because like this is what's so strange when I watch relationships. You know, like I'm 32 and a lot of my friends are getting married, they're coming together. And Kara, I'd love to get your opinion on this. So many people my age, separate bank accounts. I couldn't imagine because my parents have been married since they were 18 years old. They went to the military together. You know, my mom supported my dad supported my mom. Most of my youth, sorry, I'm taking the mic, but most of my youth, my mom ran the business. And my dad kind of made us breakfast, got us the bus, supported us, and then he built a business later in his life. So it's a partnership. That's what true relationships are. They're not like, this is your pot of money, this is my pot of money. And like personally, it turns me off. Like, you know, I just can't even imagine a relationship like that, but that's just me, right? But it's just so interesting to think about like how that works today and then before. So like, Cassie, how would you navigate like clients, or like do you have in your mind of what you'll do whenever you have people who say like, well, if they don't make this amount of money, like I don't want to talk to them?
I haven't thought about that yet, but at this very moment, I probably wouldn't take that client because I'm not comfortable with that mindset that they would have about that. I don't like it. Yeah, it's just not I'm cool with, you know, LGBTQ. I'm cool with like, you know, all that stuff, but the money thing, I don't think I could get with it.
Well, it's also hard. I mean, this is not something that like is very easy to talk about either.
Because
It's very uncomfortable.
I almost feel like I'd be setting them up for failure if I took that client.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think it's wiser for you not to take them because the beauty is Cupid's got a lot of matchmakers, right? And there's a whole lot of people out there in the world. And you know, there's gonna be plenty of people who aren't comfortable matching LGBTQIA folks. You know, like there's gonna be very much like a mixture. And that's one of the reasons, quick plug, guys, if you're not already on the Discord channel, please join us there because this is going to be a future situation. We're going to have people you meet that want to work with you, but you just say, I'm not gonna serve you best, and I'm not gonna understand and be able to like do the work for you. So I don't think that's the wisest move. Yeah, I want to go back and bring up Samantha's comment. Samantha, this was talking about what Kara said. Samantha says, nailed it, Kara. A woman who is self-made doesn't often entertain someone who isn't or is below their financial status. Men are quite the opposite. That's at least Samantha's experience. Yeah, it's such an interesting thing to talk about. You know, this is part of our job as matchmakers, right? Money. You know, relationship status. You know, maybe you've been divorced before. Does that matter? Do you have children? I mean, we really have to get personal and deep into what they want and what they're willing to accept, what they're not willing to accept, and where's the flex, right?
I always knew when I had a great conversation with my client because I would get off the phone and they literally would be crying. Or I could hear the emotion in their voice because I made them talk about some really deep things.
Yeah. Well, they felt heard, right, Kara? Because that's not a conversation we have a lot. I mean, think about first dates. When you go on a first date, do you really cover all that much? Probably not, right? And you get to know someone very minimally. It's even like when you network or when you meet someone out there. And so the beauty is when someone takes such a deep interest in your life, it feels good to let it all out, you know? Like be free and say, this is not a judgment zone. Tell me the deepest, darkest stuff that you are looking for because it's my job to find it.
Exactly. I think I even joked around and said, okay, this is your free therapy session. So, you know, tell me.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, we ready for the next topic, guys?
Yep.
All right, next hard one. You ready? Interracial dating. Let's talk about that. Who wants to take the lead? I mean, I have lots of experience, I can tell you.
So very, very common, I think, is interracial dating. I've seen it ever since I've been born. I will say since I've been in Florida, what I think is interesting is I have seen a lot more African-American women with Caucasian men than what I saw in the North, which I find to be interesting. I thought it would be just the opposite in the South.
Interesting.
But there are all forms of interracial dating. There are men that prefer Asian women. There are men that prefer African American ladies. You will find the interracial is very common.
Sure.
Is very common. And what I know is that most races will date other races. They
Yeah.
will be very specific in the races that they will or will not date. And sometimes I've had deeper conversations with people about that too. Like if I know that maybe they have been interested in dating an Asian lady, but they're not quite comfortable with it. So I say,
Sure.
well, what is it that you're not comfortable with? And maybe because they don't know a lot about the culture, right? So
Right.
sometimes I have those conversations and to try to open people up to kind of the interracial aspect, because once again, the broader net that we can cast for our clients, the better job we can do of matching them. And maybe that person is just happens to be a different ethnicity.
Sure.
Any thoughts,
Sure.
guys?
Oh my God, I have a lot. But Cassidy, you said your family runs in their blood with like guns and beer and
So
something
bad.
else, right?
Yeah. So my grandpa, he was, oh, I hate saying it, but he was a very racist man. And
Okay,
I
my family's
wasn't,
plenty racist too. Don't worry.
yeah,
It's like a mayonnaise white person problem. Like
I hate it.
it's very common.
Yeah.
So, and you know
It's a
what?
common white people problem.
I, as an African American woman, I have racist people in my family.
Yeah.
It doesn't go one way. No.
Yeah. So my grandpa, he told us, he was like, you ever, get specifically with a black man, like, and he would threaten violence. And I'm like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Like, I get, like, maybe you lived most of your life where, Jim Crow laws and all that stuff, but that's still, like, what is wrong with you? So, and so bad, I was like, like, I don't know what to do. Like, what if I don't like white men? I mean, I married one, but,
No,
it's just,
that happens. That's okay.
yeah. So, where I just had a whole bunch of stuff in my head. I lost it.
Well, let
Do
me
that
pick
all
up
the
there for
time.
Cassie while you recollect yourself. So,
Yeah.
I was telling Kara when we got to spend some time together about my experience with this, which was so interesting because I had previous to this. I'll leave his name out, even though I name check him sometimes. But he's a great man. But it was my first time dating someone who was black. It's a totally different experience because as a person of a different race, you haven't experienced their lens. You can read about it, you can watch it on TV, you can understand, but you'll never like walk in their shoes because my experience. I'm also 6'5". Like
Yeah,
my
he's
experience is so different than his was. And I remember, Kara, I told you about this when we sat down, right? Like understanding dating someone from another race requires you to be empathetic, listen, and be open. Because and preparing your client for that, because if they say, "Oh, I'm just into Asian women," is it a fetish or do you want to be her life partner? Let's be clear. Let's be very clear, right?
Yeah.
Because like I can't tell you how many men I meet that are like, "I love black women," and I'm like, "Tell me more." Is this a relationship, or do you think like they have beautiful bodies, which is both respectable, right? But let's talk about like what that person needs and what you need. So it was just, Kara, I think I talked about it a little bit with you, but like because I grew up in Florida and I grew up in like a relatively white community, I had a boyfriend who I wanted to come visit me for the holidays. And I remember, Kara, remember the conversation? I said, I was so offended. So Cassie, what happened was I said I wanted my boyfriend to come home with me for the holidays. And he said, Ken, I'm never going to Florida. And I'm like, my family's there. Like I have like 50 people. You have to come. And he said, the one experience he had was his brother did a road trip from Miami to somewhere and was stopped by the police and held at gunpoint twice in Florida.
Wow.
Let that sit in with you for a moment. So how could I ever ask someone that I intimately care about to be put through that? And more importantly, how frightening it would be to be in that situation with him. And so recognizing that like interracial dating, I mean, it's not actually any better if you're the same race. Let's be clear. It's not a better situation. But as someone who's gone through this and like as matchmakers, if we're going to say this is like something we're open to helping them do, digging into it much deeper and saying this is not just like fetishization is fine if you're just trying to find a hookup. And that's okay. Cupid doesn't discriminate. We're definitely built for finding your life partner. but being cognizant of what it means to date someone and find them as your partner goes beyond the sexual element, goes beyond like
Right.
the way they look on the outside. There's culture, there's language, there's community, there's history, there's so much deeper, right? When you talk about interracial relationships.
Yeah, exactly. And I think as an African American woman, like for me, if I were going to date outside of my race, I'm perfectly fine with that. But what I don't want to do is the same thing you don't want to do, Ken, which is sit down and have a discussion with my person about social justices and why it matters. If I have to explain who Rosa Parks is to my mate,
Yep.
we're probably not going to jive.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, like, they're just those small things that, like, I'm good with dating anyone, but I don't want to sit down and have to tell you. Let me tell you guys a quick little story. And I know we're over, but and this is
Okay.
something Ken doesn't know, but
Oh.
I was adopted as an African American woman. I was
know that.
adopted when I was 2 weeks old. So I was raised in a Caucasian family, literally the black sheep of the family. I've gone to all black schools. All white schools, lived in predominantly white neighborhoods. So, me growing up with a Caucasian family, I have been particularly sensitive about just a look or a glance or race in general, because I've had to explain myself my whole life, right?
Yeah.
So, I always thought growing up that I would date a Caucasian gentleman because that's what I grew up with. We're
Sure.
Caucasian guys. My brother's white, right? So I listen to, Van Halen, and when people are like, "How do you know who Sammy Hagar is?"
Yeah.
I do, right? So that's how I was raised, and I often wondered because I've never dated a Caucasian man. Maybe I'm missing out. Maybe because my nuances are so Caucasian, if you will. Maybe I would fit better with somebody that is Caucasian. But I've
Yeah.
never dated
Maybe
anybody Caucasian. And it's
that's so
not
funny,
because
Kara.
I don't feel comfortable with them. I just haven't met the right guy yet.
Yeah,
And
well,
it-
also maybe, Kara, it's what you're talking about, right? You spent your whole life growing up in this world that, as like an adult woman wanting to like seek new things, you didn't want to go after what you were expected to do, which is like we can definitely have a whole show about like relationship based
right,
baggage
right.
because, am I right, Cassidy? Like, there's
Hi.
so much baggage.
Comments.
in dating. Oh, we got a good comment. Oh, God, we have a lot. Wow. Oh, great. We have spam comments.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thank you,
really?
Cassidy. It actually
Yeah.
happens. It happens on YouTube all the time, sadly.
Yeah.
Well,
Sorry.
anyhow, Cassidy. No, thank you, Cassidy. I want to say thank you for joining us today. We are
Yeah.
at just about an hour. Thanks for hanging out with us. Just really happy to have more voices. I love doing this, like having more than just Kara and I. We like each other a lot, but like it's
Yeah.
nice to have more people in here. So, Cassidy, thanks for coming and hanging out with us.
Yeah.
Samantha, we need to reach Samantha. I need to reach out to you. I would
Yeah,
love
really.
to have you on. I think she has some good insight too.
Mhm.
Cassidy, thank you for joining us. I'd love to have you back on once you get into the mix of matchmaking.
Yes.
To kind of gain, what your experience is, and is it what you thought it was going to be? And of course, if you ever need anything, please reach out to me.
Sure.
I'm always
Yeah.
here to help everyone if they want to partner up with me.
Yeah, I really want
Right.
to do some like after we all have like 2 to 5 clients through Cupid. I want to hear experiences and things like that. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and leave it there. Cassie, thank you so much. Kara, it was great. Everyone have a fabulous weekend.
Happy Friday.
All right, bye guys.
Bye.
Bye.